All right, so as you may have heard, I'm Adrien Thebo, Puppet Labs. So I thought I'd introduce myself, be a little bit snarky beforehand before we go on this wonderful trip. So I started about 8 years ago doing DevOps before it was cool, when it was known as get the job done, write some code if you need to, and make the server work. Hipster. So I've been with Puppet Labs for 2.5 years. The first 2 years, I was breaking the Puppet Labs infrastructure and operations. These days, I'm in the community development team, merging pull requests, and this time, breaking the build. I do things, sometimes, on occasion. R10K was one of the more recent projects I've been working on. So back in 2011, I wrote the blog, Git workflow and dynamic Puppet environments. And so I get some interesting comments because I wrote it a while ago, like, man, this is a cool idea. And then discovered that people are reading it a lot, which is, kind of surprising 2 years later. And so it is a hybrid solution for deploying Puppet. It uses the Puppet file spec to download individual modules, and you give it a Puppet Git repo, clones everything down, one branch, one environment. Now, shockingly enough, I've been known to write a couple of Puppet modules, once in a while. Don't know why. It's Puppet Labs employee writing modules. So how about that Vagrant?
All right.
Oh, come on, dude, he's Vagrant. All right, so let's do some fun time. Audience participation. So who has heard of Vagrant? Hands. About expected. Tried it once. Use it regularly. Develop on it. Either like core or what?
Can't live without it.
One more time?
Can't live without it.
Okay, yeah. So developed on it. Actually, what do you develop on? Vagrant Hitch? Okay. Oh, wait, are you FUP? Okay. Hi, how are you? I totally ripped off a few things from you, by the way. All right. And who here created Vagrant? Okay. So that was the thing, is I definitely, I know that Mitchell H is here giving talks, and that was the question, is, I'm going to give a talk. Is Mitchell H going to be here? Oh, my God. So, all right. I'll keep this short because if I started to explain Vagrant, people are just going to be nodding along. But let's play a little episode of Good Idea, Bad Idea. Good idea. Handcrafted furniture. It's lovely. It's delightful. Bad idea. Handcrafted VMs. How is it made? And it's a one-of-a-kind sort of thing. It's really unique. Yeah. It works in my environment. Yeah, so we've played the game before. You build some VMs, you try things out, and God help you if you don't have that snapshot, because then you have to rebuild it. And it's a fundamentally fragile approach to things. So, as we all know, Vagrant, in short, is local VM infrastructure without the pain. Easy to configure, portable, reproducible, and so forth. Yeah, I didn't expect to see quite so many hands actually when I asked about how many people had tried it or relied on it. So workflow, download a box, generate it, boot a VM from it, provision, snapshot, use it, break it, revert it, and at the end of the day, tear it down and just keep on with your day. And so I got to work with Vagrant when I was actually in operations. So how many people are in ops here? Okay. And so you're doing your gig, and then someone says, well, so you're doing this one thing. Could you do something vaguely related? Anyone? Yeah. So it's the, we got kind of the approach of, if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a dodgeball. If you can do Puppet at Puppet Labs, hopefully you can debug PE. So the initial support team for Puppet Enterprise was the operations team, which was, kind of surprising. PE2 really took off, and we were like, oh man, we probably should support this and stuff. So that was the basic problem space. So Puppet Enterprise 2 came out. We need to support it, and it's kind of us? Oh, jeez, sorry. You need to be able to reproduce customer problems on any number of platforms and any number of node configurations. So to give you an idea of how complex this can be, when we run the full test matrix for Puppet Enterprise, It takes about 500 VMs to do the most common simulation. So you don't want to be rolling handcrafted VMs every single time. You will go utterly insane. So on top of having to handle this very complex sort of configuration, Puppet Lab support has an SLA. I mean, if it's a high priority issue, we have to respond within an hour and such like that. So not only do we have to meet the SLA, solve your problem, and get back to you quickly, we also have to, I don't know, run infrastructure too. So it was an interesting time, but honestly, Vagrant made it happen. So, Unicode, good stuff. So general workflow, as you might expect, we get an email or someone asking for help saying, hi, everything is burning and nothing is working and help. So workflow, you get the ticket. All right, what machines are you running? What's your master? What are your agents? What versions of PE? And so forth. Duplicate it with Vagrant, spin those machines up, try it out. Say, oh yeah, that's totally a bug inside of PE. Or, oh, you wrote what kind of manifest? Ooh, don't shell out, Lightlight. Don't shell out. Don't shell out. So, if I only came to, came to sing the praises of Vagrant, then we could just do Q&A right now, but I mean, not a lot there to do. So, Vagrant makes trade-offs, It's some things it's very, very good at, it's wonderful, and I mean, I cannot say enough positive things. But it makes trade-offs, and I mean, we all have a limited number of hours in the day, and Vagrant's been around, I think, since 2010, but I mean, it's been one guy doing the vast majority of the work. So some things, absolutely nails it. But there are some cases where Vagrant has been less refined, developed, optimized, so forth. So let's go back to positive things, though. So you know the story. You have a basic environment, 1 node, 2 nodes. You initialize your Vagrant file. You handle provisioning. You pick a box and upload it to S3 or something like that. You commit it, and you're done. And you don't need to change it that frequently. You may need to update provisioning once a month, once every 2 months. But by and large, it's static. You're done. It works. Things start getting a little bit more interesting when you're dealing with a case where you may have to have a CentOS agent, a Debian 7 Puppet Master, and an Ubuntu 10.04 agent as well, and there's something really weird going on. And then 5 minutes later, you now have to handle Rel 5 agent and Rel 6 master. So this situation started getting a little bit painful because suddenly we have we're constantly changing a Vagrant file. It's incredibly mutable. We never can lock down to one specific set of settings. I mean, once again, Vagrant's fantastic, but it is not a cure-all. Vagrant file DSL, good times. So on one hand, it's Ruby. You can do whatever you want. Come on, it's Ruby. You can do whatever you want. Do you know what happens in Ruby when you multiply an array by a string? Take your time. Anyone? It's array.join. And you can do that in a Vagrant file. If you're slinging Ruby or if you're slinging Rails all day long, it's great. I mean, you live and breathe this stuff. But if you're not writing Ruby all the time, if you're focused on other things, if you're a sysadmin, or cases like that, it's not as effective. You may not know the exact method and how Ruby handles blocks and so forth. And you can't just commit a manifest and hand it over if you have a fairly mutable environment. So it's a DARP. This is one Vagrant file. I am sorry, this was a mistake. And actually, this was literally, okay, you can't see the scroll bar. This is size 4-point font. I think it's 185 lines of Vagrant file. Has anyone done something like this? No? No? Okay. Good, thank you. Anyone who has? Painful, huh? How do you feel about procs? Shared configuration? Hurts, huh? Oh, what the hell? So in addition, by default, Vagrant gives you NAT interfaces, so whenever you bring up a machine, it can hit the internet, but if you've got 2 machines, they can't talk. You've got no internal default networking, and the DHCP server that comes with VirtualBox by default, kind of sketch. And if you're using AWS, if you're using Rackspace, if you're using KVM or LXC providers with Vagrant, have fun with that. DNS resolution, well, I mean, we all know the story. It's always a DNS problem, always. Even if it's a DHCP problem, still DNS. So solution, how about this? So I want all you guys to run a DHCPD and bind on your laptop. And for extra fun, run that DHCP server on a public interface so you connect to a network and suddenly no one has networking because you just gave everybody bad leases. In addition, so if you want to make this really easy, you should handle it for OS X, you should handle it for Debian, you should handle it for Red Hat, and I hope you feel like dealing with Arch and Sabian too. This is not a difficult problem, but the implementations are way too heavyweight. I mean, you need basic infrastructure to run, multi-node configuration, but you don't want to build an entire, infrastructure on your laptop. Vagrant's great. Once again, I mean, I can gush all day about it. The number of providers, provisioners, the extensions are incredible. I might be actually talking about Vagrant sometime during this presentation. We'll have to see. But one of the things with Vagrant is, I mean, there's so many number of plugins, and when I was working on the aforementioned project, if I had a question, I could just look at an existing provider, provisioner, client capability, or guest capabilities. It was all there, all ready to use. And it has a great ecosystem. But you get AA batteries. If you want to have a very complex configuration, if you see a lot of changes happening all the time, it wasn't built for that. And do you really want Vagrant to support every single possible use case out of the box? Do one thing and do one thing well. So, Oscar, point of this talk. Oh man, I'm going way too fast. You guys have good questions, right? Start thinking of them. I'm going to work with me, guys. So Oscar, let's see, if we do, I'll avoid skipping back. So remember that Vagrant file? That was the Vagrant file that I wrote to handle support at Puppet Labs. If you need to bring up VMs really quickly, that's what you used. I think it's actually still in use in some corners. It is, every time I see it, a little bit of me dies because I realize I have made a grave, grave error by doing this. So Oscar is a set of plugins that are designed to handle complex environments with heavy networking requirements and highly mutable environments and requirements. The goal of it is that changing Vagrant should be very easy. Changing your configuration, changing providers, provisioners, changing your node, easy things should be easy. So here's a quick overview of what Oscar is. And everything has been extracted to a plugin. So Vagrant hosts, easy mode DNS. Vagrant Auto-network, fairly self-explanatory. Vagrant PE build, well, I mean, the point of this entire thing, download, install, and test Puppet Enterprise. So Vagrant PE build is opinionated settings and a lot of neat stuff that you can just download Puppet Enterprise by doing Vagrant up. And lastly, what I ripped off from FOP, once again, brilliant, is Vagrant config builder. So once again, Ruby Ruby is a great language, and Ruby DSLs can be great for Sinatra, but as a configuration source, it can be painful. So Vagrant config builder aims to help with that. And Oscar. I had no idea how many different DNS record types. I mean, like you always see serve, pointer, quad A's, and so forth. I lost interest in writing down all the DNS record types when I hit D. Seriously, if you need a full-blown DNS server, awesome. But if you're working with 5 machines and you need one thing, IP address resolution, or like mapping a name to an IP address, it's massive, massive overkill. And I definitely say this because of all the times I actually have set up a full-blown DNS server for internal resolution. So admittedly, if you're using VMware Fusion, you can get away with a lot of things because, once again, VMware has put a lot of money into this project, and you put a lot more money into it too. It does work well, but once again, if you want to handle anything but VMware Fusion, you have to handle DNS and host resolution. So once again, if you're inside of a transitory environment, I will skip the profanity. Long story short, who gives a fluffy about the exact implementation if you're going to be tearing down a machine within an hour? So here's the thing. SE hosts actually works really, really well. You do not have to worry about DNS timeouts. You do not have to worry about connectivity. You do not have to worry about hitting the wrong DNS server. It's also web scale, really, really fast. So just deal with host resolution locally. Do something you care about, or I mean, if you want to handle bind everywhere, please be my guest. So mentioned before, so has anyone here taken a VM or a Vagrant node definition, copied it, and realized that you just duplicated an IP address along with that? A lot. So once again, it's a very, very common problem, but you don't need anything specific. You need connectivity. That's all you need. Do you really want to care about the exact address assigned at any point? Here's what you do. If I can find my mouse. Right here. I have a private network that will configure itself. That's all you have to do. And Vagrant, pardon me. And so Vagrant PE build, this is probably one of the more interesting components. So I really like seeing people's hands. So how many people use Puppet Enterprise? Okay. I like you guys. You're the reason I can afford food. Thank you. So another thing to consider too, you bring up a machine, well, if you're testing an application, you're not going to use a version that's, 24 months old, completely out of date, and has nothing you care about. You want to have something up to date. So in the same manner, why should your configuration management tool be something from 0 to 5? So, however, Vagrant or PE configuration can be a little bit exciting, and configuring it inside of a Vagrant, along with all the prerequisite network configuration, host resolution, addressing, and so forth. No one uses PE or uses Puppet to manage Puppet and hack around limitations in Vagrant or in boxes. You use PE to get something done. So with Vagrant PE build, you pick your role, master or agent. You set that in your configuration. You run Vagrant up and wait a while. Downloads Vagrant or downloads Puppet Enterprise, the correct version for the VM you're running. Downloads it, installs it with the appropriate role, sets it up. So if you want. The goal of this entire thing is from 0 to Vagrant up or from 0 to PE in Vagrant up. So Vagrant Config Builder this is a result of what happens when you try to manage really complex configuration with Vagrant. Vagrant chokes. It's configuration, it's data. Why do you, this is a very simple thing to express if you're using a real data language. So, Charlie, this familiar? So, a while back I said, okay guys, I need to figure out your most complex, gnarly, scary Vagrant files, and to figure out what do we actually need to handle? What are all the edge cases? So here's one. You need to figure out, you've got a Puppet master, you need to figure out where the box is from, you set up internal networking, you share shared folders, you handle provisioning, and God knows what else. You don't care about this. You want a Puppet master. That's pretty much it. So, and especially if you're changing roles rapidly, Config Builder consists of 3 parts. A loader, you pick a data source, you load your information, you return a hash. The filter section, you have a hash. You modify it, you return another hash. And the model, which basically takes a hash and will generate a Vagrant configuration for you. And so using these things like this, instead of if you need to have shared configuration, you don't have to write a proc, you don't have to store and transfer data inside of a Vagrant file. You say, okay, I have a Puppet master, okay. It needs to have an automatic network, we should have possibly a synced folder, and let's just configure hosts and bootstrapping. You apply it, you have a VM. Its name is master. Its box is CentOS64 no CM. Its role, Puppet master. Done. You want to change the box type, or the base box. Easy enough. You want to add a new role. Well, let's say it's a Postgres server. Add another definition to the role thing. And so this way, if you need 3 boxes, there you go. If you need 5, copy and paste the definition, change things as you need. So with Config Builder, it's been broken up. So I found YAML to be the best thing for handwritten configuration files. With JSON, God help you if you have that trailing comma. But if you want to use JSON, by all means, use JSON. It's completely pluggable. If you really like XML, seek help, but you can use that too. And I mean, $50, if you can figure out how to turn interpretive dance into a hash, I would love to see this, but I mean, if you can convert interpretive dance into a hash, you can use it with Vagrant. I've thought about things let's say you want to pull down some sort of shared configuration, you can have an HTTP data source. Literally whatever you want. So I haven't talked about Oscar almost at all. What does it do? It has dependencies. I mean, so here's the thing, is I have been very opinionated in how I've configured these chunks, but each one by itself, you can use it however you want. So if you want some components, like let's say you want to use PE, but you don't want to use YAML, it's a plugin. Download it and use it. If you want to use a different way of configuring Vagrant, but you don't need to install PE, go for it. It's just literally everything's a plugin. Pull it apart. I'm wrong about a lot of things, like what is it? Where this room was for one, which airport terminal I needed to go to for another. I'm wrong a lot. So I have my defaults. If you want them, download the stack. If you need part of it, it's trivial to do. I lie a lot. So Oscar does a little bit more than just pulls and things. It gives you some default configuration information. So it has information like, here's a list of boxes. If you just want to get started, Oscar ships with the list of Puppet Vagrant boxes. So you don't have to track down your own boxes. You don't have to vet them. Puppet Labs builds a bunch for you. Just download them. It also defines what a role is. So you can set up a Puppet agent without having to know the exact provisioning configuration, what it means, things like that. Use the role definition. And so, once again, you don't use Vagrant and you don't use Puppet Enterprise or you don't use Puppet to manage it. You use it to get other things done. So long story short, Oscar should be enough to get you started so you don't have to deal with anything. So imagine no matter what configuration you can have a PE stack in a box. You need, actually, I'll tell a story. I like tangents. So when I was in operations, we had this mandate to bring up a new server, or a new service and make it high availability with a month's notice. Fun times. So once again, if you've been in operations, there's nothing quite like saying, oh, you need to do this. You don't have enough time, but have fun. Oh, pre-production? You don't have time for that. So once you've deployed a service, it can be a real pain to go in afterwards and add a pre-production environment. Like, do you have time to spin up the infrastructure and things like that? But if you've written Puppet modules to deploy it initially, you have your own pre-production environment ready to go. If you have your own boxes, load them in. It'll work. If you have your own specific configuration, load it in on top. So this way, no matter what condition you're in, you now can you can match your real production environment as closely as you want with your pre-production environment. And you don't have to spin up new infrastructure. You don't have to bring up like new nodes in a ESX cluster and so forth like that. It's transient, it's trivial to use, and it doesn't mean that it means that you don't have to configure anything more. Literally, you got, I'll skip the profanity again. You have very important things to do with your time. Playing around, bringing up more infrastructure shouldn't be the most important thing. You should have something that's just going to work for you. So what Oscar gets you, you get all the perks of Vagrant. So you have all the provisioners that already exist. There's Rackspace, there's AWS providers. You can hop to, like, at this point, I think if you're using any sort of VM solution, you can use it with Vagrant. You can actually do bare metal with Vagrant at this point, too. So you have all that working, and now you can deploy Puppet Enterprise on it whenever you want. I've been playing around with this to make sure this works correctly. And so yeah, you basically do Vagrant plugin install Oscar, Vagrant Oscar init, Vagrant up. Anyway, it should mean, if you have to do anything more than that to really configure it, then that's probably a bug. So it should handle complex configuration and it should make your life easier. So once again, it should get you from 0 to PE in Vagrant up. So who uses it? So initially, commercial support was the first person that started using it, namely Adrien at PuppetLabs.com. But in addition, like, I created this to solve a problem, and the initial version was kind of janky, but I've been working on it, hopefully. And people have just been adopting it. All of these plugins are on GitHub, and so I keep getting these surprises. Oh, someone's using my code. Oh, geez. Sales engineering, if you see any of them doing demos today, they're using it behind the scenes. If you file a bug with Puppet, with the Puppet Labs commercial support, they're using Oscar on the back end. Actually, I'll do the shout-outs later, but we also open source support. If you file a bug on Redmine, chances are, if it means spinning up PE, or sorry, if it means spinning up Puppet open source, you're going to be using chunks of Oscar. And you know, people, stuff. So long story short, I got to feature complete on Sunday for Oscar. It's been a very busy month. I finished writing the slides a little while ago. I didn't refresh this page. I meant to strip these out, but let's go to the demos. Actually, I got a question. What do you guys think happens when you're, like you guys have connected to the Wi-Fi and you've seen that Fairmont banner popping up? Yeah, that's Squid, apparently, hopping in the middle. Do you know what happens when you use Yum and that pops up? Oh no, it will grab your connection and you, oh yeah, what is it, updating, repo data. Repo data.xml or repomd.xml didn't match the checksum. So I would have loved to do a live demo, but long story short, if I did a live demo, you would have had to see me work around these fun things. So here's the trick. If you have to work within the network here, and you don't want that banner to pop up, run wget. So it pops up like every 10 minutes or so. If you run a wget right beforehand, hopefully that'll clear it out. I'm from operations. There are times when you just need to run wget in a shell script. Now the guys in operations, you know you're guilty too. Okay, so somewhere in here, okay, I think I closed it. It's a cute picture, huh? So right before this, I wound up actually having to go through and, okay, it's tiny. You guys in the back, can you read this at all? Cool, my favorite. Good question. I haven't used this before, so perhaps.
At the bottom, I think the
bottom left. I like you guys. You know this. All right. So this has actually been cut together from a bunch of different videos that I had to take. Because once again, every 5 to 10 minutes, my deployment crashed again. So wish I had more, but this is what I've got. So you download. You do Vagrant plugin install Oscar. You start with Vagrant Oscar init. You run it. It drops in template files. You init some VMs, brings up a master and a couple of agents. You pick your version of PE. And so, wow, this is also, never use the Instant Bowl screen capture thing. It's terrible. So here's the configurations you're going to see. Your boxes, this is what I ship. It's literally a list of a box name and the URL to fetch it. So instead of having to say, Vagrant VM, VM.define box and set your box URL every time, it matches what box you're using with a backend if you have one available. So you don't have to specify the URL for every single box. You list your box URLs one time and then just use it. Once again, don't use Instant Bowl. It's terrible for screencasts. Okay, and so one of the things, when you're booting up a machine, you just see that network configuration is just automatically handled. Okay, yeah. Using Vagrant, when you install guest editions on the VM from the Debian repos? Yeah. And so here, what is it right here? So as mentioned earlier, I'm running Nginx locally to actually simulate the whole downloading bit. But when I started, none of the boxes were downloaded to my actual machine. So when you're going, you say, I want to use the Debian 6 i386 box, and here's everything I have defined for boxes I can download. And Config Builder will find that box and match the URL. So once again, you don't have to have the boxes downloaded locally. You don't have to find them. It'll happen for you. So in this demo, I did initial provision, brought all the initial boot, brought them up, snapshotted them. Okay, actually, who has used Sahara? Okay, okay. So when you're working with Vagrant, you screw up and you nuke user, and you have to rebuild? Okay. Quick tangent, you see how it's slightly red? That was me throwing in a wget beforehand to make sure that when we downloaded things, I wouldn't get the banner. I also have no attention span. Does anybody remember what I was saying right before I talked about wget? Thank you. I'm extremely forgetful. I have forgotten my own name on occasion. I wish I was kidding. So you're working inside of Vagrant. You want to test provisioning very quickly, or you're working on something, you nuke user. That happens. So Sahara is basically ultra lightweight snapshotting. Snapshot your VMs at a particular state. Do your work. Vagrant sandbox rollback. Go nuts. So I didn't write it. I wish I was smart enough to. I think it was Patrick Dubois and another contributor. They're amazing too. So once again, when I ran this, I initialized Oscar, set up some VMs, and did Vagrant up. Right now, we're installing Puppet Enterprise. I did not touch the answer files. I said I wanted a master. It'll handle everything else for you. Yep. So the master installation takes a little while. If you've installed PE before, takes a little while. Okay, so I'm going to actually hop to question and answer. At this point, we're just going to we're going to keep spinning up VMs. The master's going to come online, and then agents are just going to keep coming up. And this is my daily workflow. If I need a Puppet Enterprise environment, I do a Vagrant up. It builds whatever I need. And it's kind of nice. Just do Vagrant up and ignore it, and know that it'll work. So on to the questions, and if you have a question, podium thing. I hear thumping. OK.
Do you get to play with Windows yet? Windows. Did you play with Windows yet?
Did I do Windows yet? I saw some guys over here using R10K. Yeah, OK. So I finished R10K at the end of May. I did the 1.0 release in the end of May. I took like a week off, and ever since then, I have been working on Oscar and all things Oscar. I would have loved to have started on that. So Windows support should be added for everything. So you can bring up a Windows VM as easily as you could bring up Debian. Soon, TM. It should be trivial to do, but so we have this really awesome guy that started, Rob Reynolds actually, really good when working with Vagrant on Windows, tremendously helpful. And so I plan on picking his brain and saying like, how are you handling Vagrant provisioning, and then I'll just roll everything on top of that. Nice. Funny story, that was the guy who asked the question. Rob's awesome though. Okay, so yes, Windows support is intended. I'm working on it. It's coming along. Can you get to the mic?
Not really, but I'll shout.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, the list of boxes, it went by real quick. Do you have VMware Fusion and Workstation compatible boxes, or is this all virtual box?
Is Eric Shamau here? No, he's actually going to be here next. We don't have Ken Barber. Long story short, what are we doing? Hey, we're still bringing up PE. Good stuff. Turns out, if you have a really crappy network, it takes longer to do things. To answer your question, Ken Barber and Eric Shamau have been taking generating base box definitions. So, okay, that's Puppet Enterprise. This is how you work with Oscar. You start it, it installs PE, you're done. To hop back to your question now, yeah, I can't remember my own name, and I have no attention span. I don't know how I've managed to stay up here for so long and even stay remotely on topic. To answer your question, there are Vagrant Fusion boxes built. I don't know about Workstation, but it'll be trivial to add. Yeah. And so yes, if you go to puppetvagrantboxes.puppetlabs.com, that's everything there. Yeah, so inside of Oscar, all the boxes that are listed there, I have put into a template inside of Oscar, and as we get new templates and things like that, I'll be updating. But yes, long story short, you should have a vendor list of boxes you can rely on for VirtualBox, definitely Fusion, soon Workstation. If you want more boxes, I would recommend going on IRC and heckling Eric Shamau or Ken Barber. And don't let them know I told you to heckle them.
One more question following up onto that. Do the boxes get put into the same standard .vagrant.v boxes folder?
Oh yeah, so
Yeah, because then we can just rename the Fusion folder for Workstation.
Well, actually, to hop back a step, I realized I didn't repeat your question. So first question, so coming with Oscar, do we have more than Vagrant boxes for more than a VirtualBox? Long story short, right now we have VMware Fusion, and we should have VMware Workstation. Second question, does it download to the normal location? What's actually happening under the hood is, you know, when you specify a normal node definition, node.v or config.vm.define foo do config.vm.box equals a name. Oh, hey, that finished. Screw it, let's just go to a terminal. Can you see anything? Okay. Yep. This is the definitions we have right now. So Fedora 18, CentOS 64, and everything just points to Puppet Vagrant boxes. Download them yourself. But all this does is say, okay, do I recognize, or does any existing VM have a box of Fedora 18 x64 vbox 420 no CM? If so, it'll match it. You get it for free. Once again, I hit feature complete on Monday, Sunday. So the last 2 days, or the last 2 or 3 days, have been traveling and writing slides. And I've been working on a Lenovo, so it's really hard to work with Fusion. I've tried, and for some reason, I just can't get those .pkg files to install. Totally baffled by that. Non-snarky answer, I'll admit I've been low on time, so as soon as I can, you can do Vagrant, Oscar, init, -- provider, Fusion. You'll get a list that's customized for Fusion. Just different set of boxes, but they should be built identically. Yes, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, thanks.
Okay. More questions? Guys, I warned you at the beginning, I need questions. Okay, you.
How badly has your life gone downhill with the larger PE3 turbo?
That's in a way that you would not expect. So how much has my life gone downhill with the larger PE turbos? A tiny bit, because I realized, what is it, the PE3 all turbo, well, suddenly we support, oh geez, I forgot how big the matrix is. We have a very big matrix. And one of the issues, like if you want to have Java that's built on Fedora, guess what that pulls in? ALSA. You really want ALSA installed on your server? I mean, once again, if you want to build something, you have to link everything and pull in all the dependencies, or statically link Java with everything you'll ever need. So we have to ship a copy of Java for ActiveMQ and PuppetDB. So the tarballs have gotten larger. On the other hand, that has said that, oh, well, why don't we just download the smallest tarball available? So when you bring up a new box, it says, OK, you are running Debian 6 i386. I will go fetch the Debian 6 i386 tarball. So it takes a little bit longer, but you're hitting S3. The downloads are pretty snappy. And the big thing, too, you download it once. It's cached for good, like a box. So you have a front-loaded cost, and then you don't worry about it. At this point, so the installers are getting a little bit larger by necessity. I mean, take your pick. Do you want to have ALSA installed in your ultra-lightweight server because Java has crazy dependencies, or do you want a slightly larger installer? I mean, everything is terrible and bad. I believe, OK, once again, don't quote me on this. I didn't say this. Turn off the camera. We are going to be having agent installs only, so you don't need all, like, we're going to have much smaller agent installer packages, so building an agent will be a lot quicker. It is an issue. I've worked around it. There are solutions to make your life less painful, but everything is terrible. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
OK.
So can you talk a little bit more technically about how you're handling answer files and like the differences between PE versions? For instance, there's new answers to the file, so like, yeah. OK. Depends on how gore you want to go. Long story short, you may not believe this, but Puppet 3, or PE3, has different answers from PE2. Unbelievable. So what I've done, PE2, you have one set of answer files that work with those versions. PE3, you have another set of answer files. If you don't like mine, specify your own. I mean, it's Vagrant PE build is a standalone provisioner, so you do config.vm.provision PE bootstrap do, and you know, what is it? Pipe PE. PE.answer file, give an answer file. I am very opinionated and can be obnoxious, but you do have ways to get around my, my opinions. So yeah, specify your own configuration, but we do have seen default shipped. All right.
Okay. More questions? Heckling. Awkward silence. What time is it? Have I completely undershot? A little bit. Yes, go ahead.
This might be a dumb question, but what about like documentation for Oscar? Where is that?
User documentation or inline documentation? All right. So the question was, is there documentation for Oscar? The good news is Vagrant Hosts is very well documented. It's got a great README. Vagrant PE build is well documented as well. The README is great. Vagrant Config Builder has been in existence for about 2 or 3 weeks. It's getting there. I'm working on it, though. Like the question is, OK, Documentation, error handling, ship on time. Pick half of one of those. So it will be coming, and like, if you run into issues like this doesn't work out of the box, it's a bug. If there's not enough documentation, it's a bug and it's my fault. And seriously, file bugs, say this needs more information, this needs use cases, I'm being told to cut. Everything's on GitHub. Download it. Actually, okay, I have 30, wait, no, I've gone over, okay. Very quickly, Tom Lincoln, Hunter Haugen, Charlie Sharpstein, Adam Cruz have been incredibly helpful across the board. I'm incredibly indebted to all those people. We have like the Puppet community is absolutely amazing. The Vagrant community has been incredibly helpful and amazing. So thank you so much to everyone who has helped me out. I hope this was an interesting presentation. Don't delete your kernel. All right, thank you.